What's an experience you don't ever want to go through again? Having my house flood, especially when it's a natural disaster, because there isn't enough labor. 3 years later, and we still have bits and pieces unfinished. Being stuck in a mental hospital. It hurts not like in the movies, but it hurts the feeling of being so close to freedom yet so far away. Waking up to find my husband dead on the couch. He was only 26, as was I, and I was absolutely devastated. Watching my 11 years old daughter die in the air of heart failure. It's been 4 months. 4 months ago I had to tell the doctor to turn off my husband's life support. And I lay with my head on his chest as he took his final breath. I never want to be faced with that again, even though I was 100% certain it was right. Uterine lining biopsy. No anesthesia. It is okay to scream. We understand. Kidney stone. Appendicitis. Sucks. As soon as my surgery was done I had the stomach bug, worst experience by far. Living paycheck to paycheck. I am in a comfortable position now, and don't need to worry about bills, or if I can eat that day. My mom has end-stage breast cancer, and watching her health and spirit deteriorate is the most painful experience I have ever known. Waking up to my mother screaming and crying after finding out my oldest sister had passed away from internal bleeding and complications with her liver. All I heard as soon as I woke up were the howling cries of my mom. I thought it hurt to see her cry. But when she cried like this, lost it internally. The death of my parents. This was years ago. My mom was 62 and died of a heart attack. I will never forget seeing my mom dead on the operating table. Drive. Let us go in and pay our respects right after she passed. My dad was a heavy smoker and died several years later of emphysema. I was in the emergency room when my dad took his last labored breaths. He fought to breath for several days before he passed. It's because of him that I don't touch cig/vape. Watching him on oxygen the last year or so. And continuing to smoke. It's brutal. Diarrhea on a train. Pulling up by the building and seeing my cancer-ridden dad's body on the pavement. He jumped 7 stories. He was in his pajamas. Had to wait by his lifeless body for 5 hours while the cops and the CSI and then the ambulance came to take him. Getting a call that my son had gotten hit by a car and was en route to trauma center. Fuck that day. The feeling of abandonment when one of my parents fucked off to go party, do drugs and be a complete douche and never call for 12 years. Pretty convenient to reconnect when I'm an adult and all the hard work is over. Taking our 5-day-old son to the ER because he started having labored breathing and would not nurse. I handed him to the nurse and she took off running and calling for a crash cart. I'm no doctor, but I knew what that meant. He was revived, and we were given his diagnosis of hypoplastic left heart syndrome, HLHS. His left ventricle failed to form. 6 open heart surgeries, and 1 transplant later he is now 17. Finding my wife dead in our bed one morning about a year ago. And AshX200B. Edit. Thank you all so much for your kind words. You know, when we look at all the hubris in Washington and London and HK and Syria, it's hard sometimes to remember that we are all human beings. And definitely mortal. To help heal I wrote a little poem. If you please, I'd like to share it with you. Thank you again, kind strangers. Together we can make the world a better place. My little murder mittens Kenny helped me through a lot. But I had to let him go about 6 months later too. Life goes on. Be strong. Live for a sacred fabric oft cut from profane cloth. So we weave our tomorrows with threads of hope. I'm the needle and textile of my own creation. Dancing with a promise that gleams. As my fingers flicker in warp and weft. I'm the tailor of my own suit of being. Dislocating my shoulder while standing on a ladder and flailing wildly because holy fuck my shoulders popped out when my children were young. There was a coworker/friend of my wife who became a de facto aunt to my children and sister to my wife and I. She was single and most of her family she didn't get along with lived hours away. We lived near my wife's family and they all treated her as if she were one of us. One spring, she had been fighting a bad cold/mild flu. As with most teachers, she worked multiple jobs. Her second job, at that time, was working at the Hallmark store in the mall. Early one evening, I answered the phone. We had a landline back then, and a young woman asked for my wife. I could tell the girl was upset. My wife got on another phone. And I listened incurious to why the girl was upset. She said she worked at the Hallmark with our friend. Our friend wasn't feeling well and went into the bathroom. After about 30-45 minutes, the girl on the phone thought she'd go check on our friend. There was no response from the knock. The girl got the key and opened the bathroom door to find our friend, in her early 30s, dead on the toilet. Paramedics were called, but they couldn't revive her. The girl didn't know if our friend had family nearby, but she knew my wife was good friends with this woman and looked up our number in the phone book. The girl was understandably upset, and the news made me very sad, but the noise my wife made chilled me to the bone, made me sick to my stomach, and got me started crying. Nearly 20 years later, my stomach still rolls recalling my wife's anguished cry. I never want to hear that again. It turns out our friend had a fast-growing tumor in her abdomen that was slowly squeezing off the blood supply to her internal organs. What she thought was a flu was her organs slowly starving and shutting down. This is nothing compared to others, but I'd have to say getting potassium put into your body through and forth, that shit burns like nothing else. I'm a type 1 diabetic and have gone DKA a few times, and part of the recovery in the hospital is that they have to give you potassium as insulin apparently can lower it. It may be a horse pill, but always ask for it in pill form, if at all possible. You can even ask to have the pills cut in half, and for some applesauce to get them down. My house burning to the ground. Losing the only place I have ever called home. Losing all my belongings. Losing everything. But that wasn't what hit me the most. What hit me the most was standing there watching my house fully engulfed in flames, knowing there is absolutely fucking nothing I could do to help. That was the worst feeling of my life. Edit, for everyone asking. Started as a grease fire. Edit 2, holy crap this has blown up. For everyone wondering. It was inevitable. No it wasn't water on a grease fire. Losing everything in a natural disaster. I worked many hours. Used to pile up as much overtime as I could. And had a lot of things. Oof. All of those years wasted. I went into deep depression. And hid in World of Warcraft. Because why bother starting over from scratch? I'm over it. Every now and then I'll see something and think in my head, oh I have had one like that. Becoming homeless. Truly a terrifying experience and I never want it to happen again. Edit. Wow. I'm getting a lot of reactions on this. I'll do my best to reply to everyone. To all of those who are currently in fear of becoming homeless. I hope you'll be able to get out of this situation as quickly as possible. Stay strong. Edit 2. When I was talking about becoming homeless, I meant being homeless, jobless and without a vehicle or any money or form of income. Edit 3. For those who want to know more about my experience, I made a thread here. https://m/comments/dpvv17/m/bipl/b/underscore/bipl/underscore/a/_year because https://m/comments/dpvv17/m_bipl/underscore/and_a_year_because/ getting an IUD removed. 5 years, normal length of time for it to be in, and it was severely embedded. After doc couldn't yank it out on the first or second try. I guess they figured third time was the charm, and grabbed and used full force to remove it. I threw up and passed out from the pain and bled for days. I couldn't walk or drive home. They say removal is better than insertion, but I strongly disagree. I swore them off forever and would never recommend them to anyone. Right after it was removed they said, okay you're ready to have a baby now. And I almost punched the nurse in the face. I have a pretty high pain tolerance. This was worse than wisdom tooth removal and breaking a metacarpal. Probably combined. Being stuck in a traffic jam for 7 hours. And when I say stuck, I literally mean it. We didn't move at all for hours. People got out of their car and started to walk around the highway and stuff and literally picnicked on the asphalt. Some kids even started playing soccer on the emergency lane. That feeling when the doctors took away my baby to perform open heart surgery on her. It was after hours and hours of waiting and struggling to keep her calm without food or rest. The emotions that flooded me when they took her were the worst of my life. It fills me with dread and panic and terror just thinking about it. I wish she wasn't at school right now. I need to give her a hug. Losing a child, talking someone out of a suicide, depression. Please don't come back. The call telling me my friend had taken his own life while I was at a gaming tournament barely 20 minutes away. I had my right testicle removed on my second wedding anniversary. 2 weeks prior to that I was diagnosed with testicular cancer after I had gone into the doctor because my testicle was the size of a tennis ball and rock hard. I could go without that whole ordeal again. The resident came in and took a chair. Asked if I wanted my parents to leave the room for the conversation. I said it was fine that they stay. He then told me my 2.5-year-old had leukemia. I wouldn't wish the last year on anyone. Fuck childhood cancer. Edit. Wow. This really took off while I was out trick-or-treating. Thank you for the awards, concern and well wishes. He is in remission and doing well. Though he still has another 2.5 years of treatment ahead of him before he rings the bell. His protocol is long. He's pretty traumatized from all the shit he went through, which has been pretty hard, but we are working on it, and to be fair, we are pretty traumatized too. He's scared of change and strangers and needs a lot more hugs than he did before. But he's still a little badass. Here he is ready to head out trick-or-treating https://imga.com/tinkle. Going to a mental hospital. The first time I went there for suicidal thoughts and stayed for a week. Second time, I thought I was doing fine. I was tricked into going and had to stay for more than a month. Being in that kind of place when you are not having thoughts about hurting yourself is horrible. You are surrounded by people who do need help, and you know that there is someone who probably needs your room more than you, but they are at getting that help. You come out as a different person. The other patients develop a culture while in there, and it is hard to break out of it once you are out. It was hard to get used to the fact that I did not have to ask to use the bathroom or have someone tell me to take my medication. LDR being in a mental hospital sucks. My dad dying suddenly in the middle of the school year. I did not want to live anymore. It was hard to get up in the morning. When I was 8 years old, my younger brother and I were fighting on the second level of our bunk bed. He had gotten a good shove on me, and I began to fall off. I wasn't done yet. I gaped him and pulled him off the bed with me. Unfortunately, he landed headfirst on my balls. Left them bruised for weeks. My childhood. Thankfully I never have to do that again. Staying with and hearing my grandma cry and call out for my grandpa in her sleep in the days after he passed truly broke my heart into a million tiny pieces. Edit. Thank you. Kind stranger. 3 disc herniations and the chronic pain that came with it prior to my surgery. That shit was so tough to deal with. Couldn't work. Couldn't drive. Couldn't hang out with friends. Hell. I had to stay bedbound while my parents brought me food. Feeling a lot better now, and luckily the pain is pretty much non-existent. When people ask about that time though, it's hard to bring up. There are so many people that deal with chronic pain on a daily basis, and I ask that you please give them your support. I had my appendix taken out, but this wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the catheter. There was blood. I came out of surgery with an ice pack on my junk and a concerned look from the doctor. Doctor, we had an issue with your catheter. Me, huh? Doctor. Well, it seems that there was some damage when we removed your catheter. Me, you guys gave me a catheter? I was just coming from surgery and wasn't told that there was going to be one. Doctor, you may feel some pressure in your bladder and a need to go, but you will not be able to cause of the surgery and the coagulated blood in your urethra. So you will have to stay a night or so. Me, still high as fuck off of morphine. Okay. Later on that night, that pressure that the doctor was talking about came. I really had to pee, but I couldn't because of my blocked urethra, piss tube. I called the nurses and say that I have to pee, but I can't, I'm loopy as fuck too. So she lifts the blanket and grabs the bedpan to assist. She sees the blood everywhere around my junk and calls in another nurse to assist, mind you. I'm already in a good amount of pain. There is a pressure in my body that I have never felt before. It feels like the pressure is building up behind the incision and about to burst my abdominal cavity. It sucked. It hurt a lot. Anyway, the nurses that were assisting felt like they were sent to me by Drive. Mengele. One was holding my dick in her hands, while the other was attempting to pull the coagulated blood badger from my dick. Normally, I wouldn't mind so much, but the nurses were old and wrinkly, and I was in some pretty exquisite pain at the moment. They finally pulled it, the coagulated blood badger, out, which felt like someone pulling a barbed stick out of my dick. Then the real pain started. My penis started to spurt thick blood. Each pulse was searing in pain. Furthermore, the pressure, that you would think would feel good to get rid of, started to drop and begin to throb deep within me. The pain radiated from my abdomen to my toes and fingers, which were curling in agony. And I had to pee. I couldn't push the pee out. I just had to let it come out, which it did. In short dribbles. Each little shot was like razor blades covered in lemon juice, salt, and cayenne pepper. It took what seemed like an eternity to empty my bladder. The entire time a nurse was holding my shriveled, bloody dick. I was making those long, dreadful moaning cries, and now, anytime I'm in a hospital and hear those cries, I know what that patient is going through. It's not a normal outcry from pain, it's different. It's a plea for God. Someone to just end that pain. Like the sounds of a wounded animal. The hospital went medieval on my ass. Bottom line, morphine fixes a lot of problems, but pulling a blood badger from my dick ain't one of them. Never again.